Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of VAAS Live. We are so excited to be creating with you this evening. As usual, I'm Seth Jones, and along with me is Master Draftsman, our very own humble wizard, Chad Nuss. Chad, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing great, as always. Looking forward to spending a couple hours with you all.
Me too, and I'm very curious to see how tonight goes from a viewership standpoint because college football is back, Chad. I know that means absolutely nothing for you. You've told me stories, and maybe we can get into some of those. Chad likes to throw around useless football knowledge that is completely random and made up, and it's hilarious. Maybe you could share a little bit of that with us here in a little bit.
Sure.
But even if you've got football on, we know that you own multiple screens, and we hope that you've got football on the big screen and you've got us maybe on your laptop, your phone, or even on picture-in-picture, because we're so grateful to continue to bring to you VAAS Live, where we put the conversation and creativity, and the hope is that you're creating with us. So if you're watching sports or you're hanging out, you're drawing, you're painting, you're sculpting, you're knitting, whatever it is that you're doing, we hope that you join us this evening. And we're so grateful that you do, because it's a great chance for us to talk all things art. We go through art history, we go through skills and techniques, and as I've mentioned almost every episode for the last few, Chad is letting us in on the process of creating an amazing story and graphic novel. And he can give us a little heads up on where you're at with that, Chad, because this page is looking phenomenal, brother. The texture, the perspective, you've really got this one figured out, bud. Where are you at and how's it going?
Well, thanks. I'll give you a little bigger view here. So this is page 6, and it's kind of an aerial shot of the spaceship kind of flying up towards the viewer, and I'm trying to do a bit of a what did we call it, a fisheye lens or whatever.
Yep.
Where it's a extreme 1-point perspective down in the right hand corner where the launch pad is, and then just revolves around to more 2 and 3-point perspective off in the distance. And yeah, so that's where I'm at. My goal today is to get this page almost finished. I should be able to get the lower corner done, and then this week I'll just tighten up some areas and we'll call it done. So yeah, so this is page 6 of volume 3 of my comic book series called The Silence.
That is fantastic. And if you guys haven't picked up book 1 and 2, you can visit the VAASLouisville.com. We have some available there. You could message the humble wizard himself if you like, but we have some available. We're happy to ship them to you guys, and I would encourage you to do so that way you can fully enjoy watching book 3 come to life. And then you get the experience of picking up book number 3 when it's all finished and enjoying the entire story, because it's exceptional. It's brilliant science fiction. It's fantastic, and it's beautifully inked and drawn. I might be a little biased if you can't tell, but I'm being genuine and honest because I think it's absolutely spectacular. And Chad, I'm going to continue working on this oil piece here. It's a Flemish grisaille style. I'm painting everything in tones, 10 shades and tones. But really, something that's a little bit unique, and maybe I don't explain this enough, is this is not in black and white. I'm not using a Mars black or an ivory black. I'm actually using raw umber mixed with white. And part of the reason I like that is it makes it very earthy. It makes it very natural. And I tend to enjoy not only a limited color palette, but a muted color palette. I like softer, more muted pigments and chroma. And so that raw umber and that white really do tone it down, right? That kind of dechromatizes everything. But also it helps with these glazes, and I really enjoy it. So I'm using raw umber and white in this underpainting here, this grisaille, and then I'll add the glazes on. My goal today, Chad, is to try to finish up this backside of the couch. And if I can get that wrapped up, I'll have a nice solid background, and then I can go into these crazy folds of this blanket. And of course, my worst nightmare, the laptop, which I'm absolutely terrified of, because the laptop it's a funky perspective because it's tilting and it's angled, and you got to make it look geometric, because everybody knows if something's off on the organic stuff is okay, right? Who's going to tell me that fold wasn't folded that way? But a laptop, they're going, hey, that shift key is not the size it's supposed to be. Because, everybody knows those geometrics. So I'm terrified of that, but we're going to get to that. We're going to walk through it, and hopefully you guys are going to join us as we go through that process. But most importantly, let us know you're here. Give us a shout out. Let us know what you're working on. We usually have a number of contributors that are joining in and give us some great feedback. Ask questions. We're super excited to be painting, creating with you, and drawing, and any other creative endeavors you have. So hopefully you're joining us tonight, and we'll get going. But Chad, I'm going to dive in right away because I something that happened with my drawing class this evening, and it's right there on your page. And I'd love to get your thoughts on it, which is mark making and texture. I was teaching our drawing 101 class, and in this project, I have 6 to 10-year-olds, and I encourage them to bring in their favorite stuffed animal, because typically stuffed animals have a variety of textures, right? Like fluffy or scruffy or rough. And it was brilliant. And I was explaining to them that texture making and mark making will enhance your drawings exponentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
And with this page you have here, you have a massive amount of texture. What are your thoughts? I mean, what do you think of mark making and texture as far as comics, drawing, anything like that?
Yeah, I think, well, a couple thoughts. I think for comic books in particular, especially when you go into ink, textures serve as kind of a gray tone, because since ink is, obviously black and white, there's not much opportunity for grays unless you use a lot of mark making. And texture is a natural way to do that. Other artists are able to do what I would kind of say like scribbly mess, kind of a messy, haphazard way, but it's really hard to do that. Like, people think, oh, it's just random marks, but some people can do it in such a way it looks natural. And I envy those people, because I've tried to do that and I just can't. So for me, I've got to use texture in a more intentional way. And so I try to put in areas of texture. But anyways, that's my first thought when it comes to especially using pen and ink in comic book work. But also, as we were talking about before, texture is essentially just a variety of mark making, which sounds very basic, but that really is what it is. So even in this picture that I'm drawing, it looks like there's tons of texture, but really it's just a variety of different kinds of marking. And you just have to know, like, through studying nature and studying whatever you're trying to draw. Like, so for in this instance, it's kind of like some cavernous mountains, some wooded areas. You just have to look at photographs of forests and mountains and hills and those kind of things, just to see what they look like, and then practice reproducing that with marks. And the beauty of texture is that, like you said before, with folds of clothes and other organic things, as long as you get pretty close, like, it actually gets easier the more you do it, because you kind of see how things go, and you realize, like, you just have to give the suggestion of a texture sometimes. That's what a lot of especially beginner students run into. If they've got to draw hair or grass or something like that, their natural inclination is to draw every blade of grass. But really what you're trying to do is let the mind fill in a lot of those details. So you give the suggestion of grass through very strategic mark making. And that's kind of what I'm doing here. Although I did put a lot of marks in here, I'm not necessarily drawing every single tree, but I am putting in enough that it looks like a covered hilly area. It's like when you see those pictures of hills that are covered with forest, it just has kind of like a carpet feel, like just that texture. But you're not going to go in and hit every single tree, but you'll give the impression of it. And for my sake, I'm putting in more detail than you would normally need, just because I want to contrast the texture of the background with the smoothness and simplicity of the spaceship that's right up in your face. So I'm using texture and mark making intentionally in that way as well. So those are some just initial thoughts. What kind of things came up in your class today when it came to texture?
But before I kind of dive into that, though, I want to go back to something you said about those artists who can very loosely add texture, because I think you hit the nail on the head there as you were talking through all that. It's not haphazard, right?
Yeah.
It is very intentional. It is conscious. And those who can do it effortlessly are the ones that do it like very elegantly. You know what I mean? Like, you can see people who can render texture beautifully, and that's fantastic. But those artists that can like throw a line out there or imply, right? Like that implied texture, that to me is so challenging. I mean, that's just, there's a certain level of execution there that I think is absolutely brilliant. And I agree with you 100%. But yeah, class today was absolutely fantastic. And my younger students just did a phenomenal job of less is more, right? Like they really went in there, and it's amazing to see these young artists, like when they're drawing their stuffed animals, right? one of them brought in, a teddy bear, and they had this super fluffy like texture on it, and they were just putting these beautiful marks out there. And they're going, "How's this look, Mr. Seth?" And I'm like, wow. I'm like, that
Yeah.
looks really, really good. And then, what's funny is one of the students looks at the other student and goes, "Well, I would do the same thing to draw your hair." And then I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Oh yeah, you could do this like Mr. Seth's
Yeah.
beard." And I'm like, man, you guys are, they were starting to connect the dots of mark making can be utilized in so many different drawings.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And really what's funny is I, in my opinion, you kind of build a repertoire of like a handful of different marks.
Yep.
And then you just manipulate those different marks to create a variety of different textures, right? It's
That's
really
exactly
not,
right.
it's a very similar technique. And then you just execute it. And the kids, they really, I think, had an aha moment of connecting the dots of why texture is so beneficial. And one of them, believe it or not, one of them goes, "Mr. Seth." And I said, "Yes, ma'am." And she goes, "This is how we make something look three-dimensional." And I said, well, "What do you mean?" And she goes, "Well, when you take your shading and then you add in the texture, as long as your shading is good, the texture is going to give it depth." And I'm sitting there going, I have succeeded as an instructor. I am so happy, and I'm not making that up, guys. You're like, they didn't speak like that. It was pretty daggone close. It was pretty daggone close. And I just felt very relieved that some of these things really sink in, and the sooner you learn some of these foundational elements, I think it allows, especially young students, I'm going to use the word success, right? Because success is something different for everybody, but it allows them to be a little bit more successful in their execution in their drawing ability, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they become happier with it. And then they get excited because their teddy bear looks like their teddy bear.
Yeah.
And that is really exciting for me. And that's just something I kind of wanted to talk about today because I thought it was really fun and I thought it was really successful. And obviously with your page, I thought it was really relevant.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I always think of artists like, as far as the comic book world, like Todd McFarlane is really good at it as far
Oh,
as
yeah.
putting in those little marks, like they seem just random haphazard marks, but they add so much texture and so much detail to his drawings. And I tried to recreate that. And if you can't do it right, it comes off really messy. It looks
Yep.
like you don't know what you're doing.
Yep.
And the difference with that and what he does is it looks so natural you don't even notice it unless you sit there and look at the page up close and look at the marks and ask yourself, why did he use those marks? If you don't do that, you won't even notice it. That's how good it is.
Yep.
And that's like anything, if you're watching someone that's very skilled at something, often they kind of get out of the way and you just look at the painting or drawing or whatever, and you're just mesmerized by it, and you no longer look at, oh, this paint stroke or that. I mean, you will, if you're a artist and you want to see their technique, obviously, but if you're not and you're looking at it, you look less at the skill and more at just like the beauty of the page. That's when you've really got it. And yeah, he's the first one I always think of is him, because he even talks
Me
about
too.
like when you draw like wreckage or a mess or something. He just talks about like it is so random. There's not a picture, there's not a model you're going by, so you can just put stuff in there. But it is a specific skill to be able to make that look real and not like messy. And it's like when artists first begin using pen and ink, it's usually like real scratchy. It's like
Yep.
little lines here and there. It's like they're trying to sketch with their pen, and it just looks I want to say
Forced.
this in a what's that?
Forced. I think it looks
Forced.
forced.
Yeah, the word I was thinking is more like amateurist, which I
Oh,
hate to
yeah.
say it that way, but it does. Like, you can definitely tell the person that's been working with ink for a long time. They have a smoothness about their line, control over their line, and a control over the textures and details and marks that they make, versus the person it's almost like they're trying to find their drawing because they're using, like, sketching it out so much. And yeah, so that's
I think that's a beautiful way of putting it, like trying to find the drawing. It's funny that you mentioned Todd McFarlane, and it's funny you mentioned the mark making, because I'm going to step away for a quick second and get something that is probably almost 30 years old. And
Okay.
I want to show you guys something. So I'll be right back, Chad. I apologize. I didn't see this coming. I didn't plan this, hence why I
Yeah.
don't have it ready. But he's brought up Todd McFarlane. He's taught up all of his mark making, and I'm going to show you guys something that changed the way that I execute as an artist. And it really was a game changer for me because I went from drawing a lot of stuff that was manga or cartoon based, and then my uncle exposed me to Spawn issue #1.
Mm.
And not only did he expose me to that, he showed me a very specific drawing of Spider-Man. And I'm going to show you guys here in just 1 second. So hopefully it's a treat. Hopefully you guys think this of as a little bit of a treat, or maybe not. Maybe you guys just think it's crazy, but I'm going to be right back. I'm going to get something.
No, that's awesome. I look forward to it. And no, I love these little spontaneous moments. That's what it makes this our little live stream all about. It's awesome. So yeah, so thank you all for joining us. And I see Matt is on, and thank you for the hello. Hey Matt, it's good to see you again. Good talking with you. Hope you're doing well. And I'm excited to see some progress on your portrait and just how that's going. And so yeah, I'm excited for you on that. And yeah, and here we go. It sounds like here he comes. There he is. All right, Seth is back and gonna show us his fun little surprise.
So Chad and I have talked about we very much I think it was your uncle as well as my uncle that really kind of influenced us in comics and drawing and everything else.
Yep.
And so I had been really excited about drawing for a long time. And this is a sketchbook from middle school. And so you can see it's pretty beat up.
Oh,
It's held
yeah.
together by tape. It's falling apart. But, Chad was talking about mark making and Todd McFarlane. And what I had been doing, and this wasn't everything, but it's funny, you can see like I even wrote, Seth Jones in there, right?
Yeah.
But I had been doing a lot of like cartoon based stuff,
Okay.
whether it was
Yeah.
Disney or, this is, video game stuff. Obviously, Dragon Ball Z was, a big
Oh, yeah.
influence,
Yeah.
all of that stuff. And there's pages and pages and pages of this. Okay, guys. I mean, just all kinds of stuff. But then my uncle James, who was just an absolute amazing artist, introduced me to Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man. And I remember seeing the mark making on his webs,
Yeah.
right? Which he became
Yeah.
very well known for. And when you were talking about those little marks that, don't mean anything,
Yeah.
but they mean something. I went from drawing that kind of style that I just showed you guys to doing this.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know if you guys can.
Yeah.
And then I go, man, that I didn't think I could draw that. And I was like, this is amazing. And so then look at the different quality and line.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right?
So much better. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember going, oh, those little marks, I don't have to be afraid of them. Because in cartoons and animation, everything was hard lined, right? You didn't have those textures and those mark making. And really, one of my favorites was of the Violator here. But you guys can see, like,
oh, that's really cool. Yeah.
and I started doing the different sequential here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was just such a game changer that everything post being exposed to Spawn issue #1 and Todd McFarlane, really, everything changed for me. And not that I didn't still love drawing all the other cartoons and everything else, but this was the one that I was like, I want to go to art school, right? And
Yeah.
you can see how messy and just,
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's so cool.
But that was a big moment. And so when we talk about haphazardly making marks, and you see somebody like Todd McFarlane, you see somebody like Sam Keith, that's another one that I think does beautiful marks that are different and unique. Those you never know what those influencers are going to bring forward, right? And so like today's lesson with my young artist, having them create texture, that might ignite somebody the same way as me viewing Todd McFarlane's texture and mark making really influenced me. And then really what's really crazy is a couple of years later, he did the cover art to Korn's Follow the Leader album.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember going, what? I know this guy. I know this artist, And it was just this really cool, fun experience. And that was the little side story that I was going to add in. So
no, that's awesome.
It's really unique to see how that changes for students and artists. And another good example of that is your daughter, who is doing beautiful work, right? Her cartoons are spectacular. She's one of the most talented young artists I've ever seen. And she does these great things. But as she loosens up, her mark making, even in her cartoons, is better.
Yeah.
It's becoming more sophisticated. It's becoming a more elegant execution. I'm not saying that what she was doing before wasn't incredibly well executed. It's just stronger.
It's just different. Stronger.
It's different,
No, that's awesome. I'll let her know you said that. She'll be very pleased to hear that.
Yeah. Well, and she's in my watercolor class and just executing beautifully. And I know it's hard. It's a hard class. And I just love seeing that work come to life and see it, influence her drawing and her sketching and her inking and everything. I mean, I think it's great. But you had a very successful class today. I have not seen two of our students come out so jazzed and so excited today.
Yeah.
And they were just so pumped. I mean, one of our students came running by my office. I'm sitting there trying to keep up with scores from college football. And she's like, I got to show you this. I got to talk to you about this. I'm like, whoa. Just blown away. What was that all about? I mean, they were super, super excited.
Yeah. So that was from our character design class. And so this week we talked about storytelling, because before we get into like specific character designs, you have to, I just challenged them to think like, yeah, you can come up with a random character and, just kind of, design their outfit, their look, that kind of thing. And that's all well and good. But excuse me, one of the main things that you need to figure out first is their storyline. You need to figure out the environment they're in, their world. You got to build this world. And so we looked at story structure, and we just took 4 basic ones, everything from, your basic story structure, where it's like an intro, rising action, climax, and resolution. And then we looked at, a variation on that where the resolution is actually catastrophe. So we talked about tragedy.
Yeah.
And then we did a three-act story where there's like rising action, then a plot point, another rising action, plot point, and then conclusion. And then we didn't get to the last one, which was a hero's journey, which is like the most famous one, I think, of all. And that one is setting up for next week, where we get into protagonists and actually designing characters. But all that to say, so we just worked together, and I was like, okay, let's take a classic story structure and let's just invent a story. So let's start with intro. So someone like come up with a scene or whatever. And so they were kind of throwing out some things back and forth, and one of them decided, let's do like a floating city. I was like, oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So we did that. And then I was like, okay, well, let's think of like some rising action. And one of them was like, okay, well, there's this character and they're from another society, and they want to come in and kind of defeat these people in the sky. And I was like, oh, this is great. Yeah. And so they just kept building on the story. And then they started thinking in terms of, then I was like, okay, well, let's draw like a scene from it. Let's see what it looks like. And so one of the students was really having a hard time with that, like visualizing what it is.
Right.
Like she loved the story, she was excited about it, but she couldn't really visualize it. So she got out a video game that she really liked, and she was like, well, can I draw like a variation of this? I was like, yeah, that's a lot of times how artists work. They'll find something they really like and then change it a bit. And so she used this game that she really likes to play, and then the other student was like, oh, we could also add this lore from this game.
That's awesome.
And then I was like, yeah, that's how new ideas come about. You take some established ideas, mash them together, and you get a third idea, which is new, it's different. And so they were super excited. So then I was like, okay, well, one of you students, why don't you do the storyboards, and then the other student will write out the script, and then we'll come back next week and we'll start designing the characters, and we'll build this thing together. And that just, because sometimes when you're teaching, you're like, okay, you're trying to get this information across. You really want them to get it. You really want them to love it. It can be exciting, but sometimes it just doesn't land.
Yep.
And there was a couple times where I'm like, okay, this is really good. I don't know why this is. I think what's happening is it's really hard for certain aspects of this is harder for each student in different ways. And I just, for whatever reason, I was like, okay, this is not working. We need to try something else. So then as soon as the one student was like, can I use this idea? I was like, yeah, that just sparked something for her.
That's
and then it
awesome.
was just like one thing after another after that. So it was great. It worked out great. So yeah, they were really excited.
Those are the classes you leave going, yep, that was a good
Yes.
class.
Yeah. I've had plenty of classes where we're leaving. I'm like, oh man, I need to redesign, that lesson, or that had such potential, but for whatever reason, like I said before, it just didn't land with them. They just weren't really into it. And then you have others where it just it sparks the creative part of their brain and they just take off with it, and it's awesome. So
Well,
yeah.
one of the things I love about that is when you're thinking of, character design and concept art, nowadays, very rarely are artists working in isolation on that, right? There
Yeah,
are a lot of
exactly.
times you're working on a creative team, right? You may have an art director or a lead position, but ultimately you're collaborating and you're building off of each other, right? Oh, well,
Yep.
this is a great design, but what happens if you take this and change it to that, right? To me, I think that's absolutely exhilarating to see that kind of collaboration at a young age, especially in one of our classes. And I love what Matt says here. He goes, sounds like the start of a VAAS graphic novel.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'm all about it. That
Yeah.
I think that would be absolutely amazing. And I think the kids would absolutely love it. I mean, if they continue to push and succeed the way that we think that they will, I wouldn't mind, printing it out for them and getting them some copies. But that's a big project. That's a huge project. But I love the vision. I love the excitement. And I think that these students can do it. Why not? Who says that they can't? And I think it's wonderful, Chad. I really loved seeing the energy and the excitement coming out of the class today. It was wonderful.
Yeah, one thing we talked a bit about, like I have we have some Disney concept art books where the whole thing is, just all the different sketches that went into designing the characters, and different, like, they've got like paintings and collages and
Yep.
digital of just like different concepts. So that they'll do the environment, or a house, or buildings, or the different characters or the side characters and all that. And then one thing I stressed for them, I said, okay, let's take, a few minutes to just look through the book, point out the drawings you like, point out concepts that are awesome or whatever. I said, but one thing notice is that they didn't just draw the character once. They took
Right.
that character and they tried different outfits on them. They tried different color variations. They tried different body types. I said, normally, when you come into a class like this, you think, oh, I'll just, I'll come up with a character and that'll be it. But really, it's like you said, and it's not in isolation. So you're drawing a character, but there's like 10 other artists that are also designing that character. And
Yep.
I showed them in the book. I said, okay, here's 4 examples, but I said, I guarantee you these artists had to draw like 100
Oh
variations of
yeah.
these. And we're just seeing 3 because they want you to exhaust your ideas so that you can then get to the point where you're trying new things. And we've had those assignments in art school, and it's the same thing I try to do in our classes. Like, you say, okay, here, do 20 variations of this. And you're like,
Yep.
20? Are you serious? Like, yes. And they don't know why. And I said, because you're going to get the first 15 are going to be ones you've already thought of. So
Yep.
just get those on the paper and get that out of your system. And then the last 5 to 10, like, you're forced to do something different. You're
Yep.
forced to do something you've never done before. And that's really hard because obviously you've never thought of it. So
Yep.
just to come up with a new thought is very difficult. But that's when the creativity really starts. And
Well,
that's one of those where I have to remind my students, you come into our class and drawing is fun, but there comes a point where it's hard work, and that's where it's hard. But that's where the real breakthroughs happen, for sure.
I
So
agree. Well, I want to chime in on that because I agree wholeheartedly. I remember, when our apprentice Layla, and man, I wish she was on here. She took our illustration course, and it was a one-on-one, and we were discussing thumbnails, right? Concept thumbnails and layout thumbnails, and the use of thumbnails, how they're a cheap, inexpensive way to come up with those ideas. And I told her, I was like, you have to do 10 variations. Well, the first 3 just flooded out of her, right?
yeah,
And they were great. I mean, they were really good. And you could tell that she was kind of like, well, why do I have to do these other 7, as you so eloquently put it? And I told her, I said, well, here's the deal. Sometimes those other 7, I'm using this as an example here,
yeah,
are going to flop. Sometimes they're awful. Sometimes your best idea was the first one, right?
yeah,
But then sometimes you'll come up with something so completely different, and then you're like, man, I wasn't expecting that. Wow, that's really good. Or maybe it's not even the whole concept. Maybe it's a piece of the concept that you take and utilize back on your first or second thumbnail, your first, second example. And what's really funny is she did these posters that are absolutely brilliant. She brought in these 3 recently and showed them to me, and we talked through them, and everything was great. But then next thing you know, a week later, she comes in and she goes, "Oh, well, here's the ones I submitted." And guess what? They weren't any. Well, one of them was the original 3. The other ones were other concepts that she went home and kept working on. And I just kind of looked at her and grinned, and she goes, I know. Because a lot of times that does push you to come up with something better. And I think we often just take our first instinct and run with it, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes those instincts are really, really good and really strong, and you should take them and run with them. But there's also something to be said about pushing yourself further than you thought you could go. And I think that's huge.
Yep, for sure. I think that also the challenge for students is, because it is hard work, when you say, okay, you've come up with your character, that's good, draw it again. And they're like, what? Like, I already did the work. It's like, no, draw it again, but do this time, make the character, 50 years older, or make them as what they look like when they're a child, or, and then that brings just a depth to that character that you would never had if you just drew it one time, and I totally get that. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you out there, but I remember. And the other thing is, we have a lot of students that want to do this for a career, right? Or that they have a vision potentially of doing this as a career. And I remember when I was doing some creature design and concept artwork for a movie writer, I did this creature design, and I'm like, this is the best freaking thing I could come up with. I'm like, this is amazing. This is awesome. And so I did all these sketches, I did all this mock-up, I did all this stuff, and then I took it over to him. I'm like, super jazzed, right, Chad? Super excited. I'm like, they're going to love it. This is going to be amazing. And we sit down and we review all these pieces, and he looks at me, and he was absolutely wonderful. And he looks at me and goes, oh, man, these are great. These are awesome. But can you do it more like this?
Yeah.
And I was like, nope, no, I can't. But then I remembered, this is his story. This is his movie. It's my job to help bring his vision to life.
Yeah.
And so I'm going, I may think this is the best thing I've ever drawn, concept wise, but yet he wants it more like this. Well, that means I got to go back and do the whole thing over again.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is, right? I mean, could you imagine, being in some of those Pixar meetings where you're like, I have Mr. Incredible down. He's perfect. And then your producer or director or somebody comes in, your creative director comes in and goes, nah, we don't like it. Are you going to be defeated? Are you going to deflate? Or are you going to rise to the challenge and go, okay, I can do better? Because that's the reality. If you want to take this pathway of a career, until you're in a leadership position, you don't get that final say, right?
That's right.
Yeah. And a lot of times it's a collaborative final say. And I think that's a healthy thing to experience early on. And to see the two students really want to collaborate, I think that's a good sign, because they're going to have to find common ground, right?
Yep. Yeah. Or you can just be grumpy like me and not want to collaborate because you want your own ideas.
Well, but that's a choice too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a conscious decision as well. I think that's okay. I mean, that's part of the reason I did not want to do any more freelance work. Because I got to the point where I go, you know what? I really want to do what I want to do. I want to paint pictures of my kids.
Yep.
And that's okay as well. But I think, it's just like, the career paths in the arts are challenging because a lot of people really want to do it because it's your passion, right? It's your love, but it's hard work. It's a lot of work. And, I think some people think, well, I'm just going to paint or draw, and then I'm going to come up with this or that. And the hard work is there just like any other profession. And now, are some people very naturally gifted and very naturally talented, and some of the creation comes easy? Sure. But there's other aspects that are going to be very, very challenging, and you have to show, at least in my opinion, you have to have a certain level of resiliency. Even if you're and I want to clarify this, even let's say that if you're a painter and you want to show and you're going to sell your work in a gallery, let me tell you, there are times you may put pieces in a gallery and they never sell. They don't go anywhere. And you're thinking, this is the best piece I've ever painted. And yet it doesn't sell. And there's a lot of reasons that could be it, right? But the whole thing is your artistic journey, and I stand by this. Hard work always pays off. Always. Maybe not when you think it should. Maybe not how you think it should. But it always pays off, whether it's self-fulfilling, whether it's something else. It's always something that's beneficial. Hard work always comes to fruition in one way or another. And whether that's you're working, for your own pleasure, which we have a lot of people here that do create for their own pleasure. We have a lot of people who are professionals or work in some form of creative industry, and we have some students who are hoping to pursue a creative endeavor as a profession. And all of those stages, it's still work, right, Chad? I mean, even with you doing your books at your leisure, even with you doing the work that you want to do, it's a lot of work, right, buddy?
Oh yeah. Yep. I mean, these books, and not just books, but if you're doing a drawing or painting, it takes a lot of self-discipline to decide, okay, I'm going to work on this today. It's not every day that you're like, oh, I just can't wait to get to drawing or get to painting or whatever. Everyone has those days where you're like, I just don't want to today, and that can turn into days and then weeks and then months, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh man, I haven't worked on that thing in forever. It's
What have I done?
Yeah. I think everyone deals with that on some level. So,
and then it becomes almost a negative manifestation at that point, because then it's like, well, maybe I just wasn't meant to do it, or maybe I won't get to it, or whatever. And it's easy to talk yourself out of those things. It's easier to talk yourself out of those things, in my opinion, than it is to talk yourself into them.
Yep.
Dun, dun, dun. Thank you so much to everybody that's been jumping on, everybody over on Instagram. It's great to see you guys over there. It's wonderful. Thank you guys for jumping on. Brittany Diang, and again, everybody, I butcher names. I'm so sorry. It's really hard for me. I don't know what it is, but even if you listen to our art history in 1 minute, don't butcher me. Italian names, French names, all these things, I really struggle pronouncing them. Leave a comment. Let me know how it's supposed to be pronounced, but I'm doing my best. But we've got Jen Woody over here. We've got more Art 502. It's so wonderful to see all of you guys. Everybody over on Twitch. Howdy from me and Chad. You guys are so great. Everybody here at VAAS. Wonderful to see you guys over there on Twitch, as well as YouTube, X, and Facebook. Of course, you guys are absolutely amazing. And of course, we usually have our very own Matt Griffin. He's wonderful. We're so great to see you on here. We hope your drawing and stuff is going well. I saw something on Facebook today that you're going to be sharing some pictures pretty soon, Matt, of what you've been working on. And I'm super excited for that. We can't wait to check it out. It's going to be very cool to see. Or I should say, correct me if I'm wrong and that's not the case. But I'm pretty sure I saw it where you're going to be releasing some photos of what you've been working on. And I'm excited to see that come to life and to see what it is. It's going to be a wonderful surprise.
So are you, let me start over. Words are hard. So your art history in a minute.
Yes.
Are you willing to reveal what the next artist is going to be, or we have to wait for the next installment?
No, I don't mind. I mean, I don't want to give it all away because I could very easily just talk through it all here. No, so we've got a little bit of Monet coming up. We've got a little bit of Michelangelo coming up. We've got some Frida Kahlo coming up. We've got some other elements as well. I've been really excited about it. So I've written over 30 of those. And
that's
and
amazing.
Some of them, so I started out with some things that are a little bit more common, right? Maybe not common knowledge, but people know Michelangelo, right? People know Van Gogh, and people know the Mona Lisa. And so I started out with some things that are maybe a little bit more accessible. And then I start diving into a little bit more nuanced art history. And I'm really excited about some of those because I think some of those will be some things that maybe a lot of people don't know, Chad, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's really exciting. Our first one only had about 7 views. after about a week and a half. But our second one is over 300. So,
That's
I'm
awesome.
pretty stoked about that. That's pretty exciting, and we'll continue to do those. And honestly, I enjoy doing them. I really love art history, and so, we offer art history classes out of here, and I really enjoy doing them. And it's a refresher for me. And art history is what we know, and we know a lot of things can change over time with discoveries and just research. And I just really enjoy it, and so it's a blast. And believe it or not, I've gotten a lot of feedback from people going, that was really fun. I learned a lot in that 60 seconds. So I like the format too. I like the idea that it's very digestible. It's 60 seconds. It's a quick hit, and hopefully maybe you learn something new that maybe you didn't know.
Yeah, they're great. I was really impressed with even just like the editing. People don't realize how much time goes into editing those. And even though it's only 60 seconds, it's still exponentially more time goes into them, editing and making sure, it sounds right and the lighting and all that kind of stuff. And I just think they're so well produced. And
You're so kind.
well, it's true. I mean, and also just the little tidbit of art history is really nice. It's better than focusing on some kind of social media, gossip or something like that.
Trent, yeah. Why is Sydney Sweeney, the most beautiful woman in the world?
Yes.
Or why is she not? I mean, I'm like, come on, guys, really? Like,
yeah.
Why is this the topic? Why are we fighting about this? I don't understand.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Who's more beautiful than who? We're all beautiful. We're all God's creation. Let's love each other. It's like good night,
Yeah.
But that is the world we live in. So,
yeah.
But I do agree. I think that I did have somebody message me and go, all of this already exists in the internet, and I said, yes, I do, but you never know when somebody's going to see it or not see it. There is so much out there that maybe somebody hasn't seen this information before. Maybe it's not something that they were exposed to. And so I understand that comment. I didn't take it too harshly. But at the same time, I'm like, yeah, I get it. Somebody could do that, but maybe they don't know to research that. Maybe they didn't know that the Mona Lisa had disappeared for 2 years, and that's partially what made her as famous as she is today. Right? Was this intrigue and the mystery and all of that kind of stuff. So I understood that person's comment, and I get it. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of fun to be had with learning new things, and some people don't know that stuff.
Yeah, I don't know whose comment it was, so I hope I'm not offending them. But I'm like, come on, Debbie Downer. Jeez.
Yeah, I know it. I mean, it did. I mean, obviously, it did bother me a little bit, but at the same time, I'm like, all I'm trying to do is get some information out there for some people, expose some people to something that maybe they didn't know. And honestly, we are an art institution and an art academy. I think art history is pretty important as to what we should be providing to our students and to our community. And I think we owe it to this community that we have that's growing here, Chad, to share with them the experiences of art history, because the more you know, the more you can learn from it, replicate it, build from it. And, we've spent a lot of time talking about these kind of things on this on this live stream, that it is incredibly important to know this stuff. This is how you know where you've been and where you're going to go. And I think it's important, and I think that these little 60-second digests are good. Whether it already exists out there, great. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. I'm just trying to help some people learn and grow and experience art. And I think that's the goal.
Yeah, for sure.
And poo on you if you think other. I'm just kidding. I am dreading this laptop. The folds of the blanket aren't really that intimidating to me.
Yeah.
But for some reason, and I know what it is, and I said this to a student the other day, and I need to practice what I preach, right? Which is just put paint on canvas.
Yep.
Just get paint on canvas. Just start. If I start and I get going, it's going to start moving on its own, if that makes sense, guys and gals. But I do want to go back because I had mentioned, and I apologize, I had missed it. Matt says, let's put it here. I mentioned that he's working. He goes, I'm almost done with this piece. Unfortunately, I'm sick right now. Oh, no, Matt, I hate that for you, man. I hate that you're not feeling good. I hope that you recover quickly and are able to get back to it and maybe get that finished up. We hope you recover and feel well soon. Being sick is no good for anybody, so we hope that you recover quickly and then get to share your work with everybody. Dun, dun, dun. Being sick is no fun. I created a new canvas for a new painting, and I'm hoping that this coming week I can start laying out some of it. Super, super hoping that because I'd like to have a painting that's in the drawing stage as well.
Yep.
You know, because I get so excited about the painting side of it, but I also want to be able to dive in and, you know, keep rendering, and it helps me. It's very healthy for me to work on multiple pieces. And so I'm excited to kind of keep that going.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. So can I ask what the subject matter is?
Well, so I'm torn, but I have I have a whole catalog of photos or subjects, I guess you could say, that I have captured over the last number of years, and it's in a folder on my phone called To Paint.
Nice. Yeah.
But I've kind of solidified this idea that I want this series to be called My Extraordinary Life. I always do this thing on the play on words, right? Like I like the play on words, and I like, you know, my art series to have purpose and meaning behind them. And so I want it to be parenthesis extra and close parenthesis ordinary. So it's my extraordinary, but it's also my extraordinary life.
Yeah.
And so I want that duality. And I have this picture that I took when I was visiting Thomas, and we were celebrating his upcoming wedding. And it's this very cool photo of all the guys kind of hanging out, shooting pool. And I don't know what it was. It was a very impromptu thing. Thomas is obviously a photographer. And it's this really cool photo of all of us watching one of us shoot pool.
Nice.
And it's to me, it's like very iconic. You know, it's kind of like the poker players. You know what I mean? Like the poker dogs. It's like this very cool, iconic photo. And I just fell in love with it. You know, it's got these very cool colors. It was just something that has stood out to me over the years. And I'm like, you know what? This is, and it would be very, very challenging. It will be the hardest painting I've probably done ever. And obviously, you know, this painting that I'm working on now is very challenging for me. I don't normally paint people, and I've done now a portrait of Everly and a portrait of Cora. And obviously I'm working on this one now, which I think is very challenging. That next one would be even more challenging. And so I do want to challenge myself, and I'm exhilarated by that. I'm intimidated because it has how many people? It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's got 6 individuals in it. So it has 6 people, 6 individual portraits. It's got strong perspective, very strong perspective, because it's shot from the far side of the pool table.
Yeah.
So 2 or 3 of the billiards balls are super huge, super saturated. And I just think it's what I should do.
Yeah.
And I'm excited
amazing.
by it, you know, and I'm going to push myself to do it.
I love it.
I may get started on it and go, I'm insane. But, you know, I figure if you can go through each page of a beautiful graphic novel live on camera, showing the challenges, the errors, the frustrations, the reworking, well, then by all means, I can push myself through my paintings. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is part of having that camaraderie. Part of that is not working in isolation. I probably would not have pushed myself to this extent, Chad. And you know this, you and I have talked about this in person. I would have not attempted the painting that you guys are seeing here. I would not have tried this because I would have been overly intimidated by it with all the different folds, all the different things. And yet this is one of the most joyful things I've painted in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it could still finish poorly, but boy, do I enjoy doing this.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So that's what I'm thinking I'm going to do.
That's great. Well, I finished my secret project.
Oh, I'm so it's so exciting. I wish I knew it, and can't wait for it real. Do you have a reveal, or are we gonna have to be in suspense for a long time?
Not yet. I want to save the reveal to when it gets displayed. So it'll be put in a public place.
Ooh.
And so I'm gonna wait till then. So it'll probably be more towards it's an Advent project, I can say that. So it'll be
very cool.
Towards Christmas time. So I just need to mount them. So there were 4 large charcoal drawings, about 5 foot tall, 4 foot tall. I forget how long. I think 5 foot, but either way.
Wow.
So I just need to mount them on board, so then they can be displayed. And then once I do that, I have a large charcoal drawing that I really want to do, and in full charcoal. So my last several large drawings, which are still in the process of being completed, are mostly pencil, except for the landscape is turned into a charcoal drawing. And I love the charcoal because I'm much faster in charcoal than I am pencil. So when you do a large drawing, the downside of it is that you can spend so much time on it, you kind of get tired of it, which I know sounds bad, but is reality. So, but I do love working large, so I do want to get into some more large drawings. So I do have kind of a series of drawings that I've thought about doing for a long time, but just didn't have the means to do it, just because, as I said before, doing these large drawings is just hard to have the perseverance to finish. So like, I'm doing that landscape drawing that I used to do on Saturdays on this live stream. I've finally been able to get into the studio a little bit and started working more on that, and I'm hoping to get that one done maybe in the next month or so. And then I've got a large drawing at my house that has sat there for over a year, because I posted some on Facebook, and I had one of those 1 year memory things or whatever. And it was a post from when I had been working on it, and so it's sat there for quite a while. And I want to get it done. I'm not motivated to get it done right now. So it's there, and I'll get to it when I can. But I want to do a large charcoal drawing series of so from the book of Isaiah in the Bible is very like flowery, poetic language, and it has a lot of like little scenes, or like descriptive scenes. And so I kind of want to do like large charcoal drawings, like of a entire chapter of all these little vignettes, and put them together into a composition. So I kind of have one sketched out for chapter 1, and I'd like to kind of try it and see if I could do it. So that's what
I think that's awesome.
I think that's what I'm gonna try next.
I think that's awesome. I want to hint or talk a little bit about something you just said, which I think, a lot of, I don't want to say non-artists, but a lot of people who maybe don't practice art or work a lot don't fully get. And, they think, well, you're so talented, you should just be able to turn it on and turn it off, right? Like you should be able to turn that work ethic or that execution on and off. And yes, to some extent you can, right? Sometimes you can, but there are also other times when you get to a point and you go, I'm just not feeling it. And if I sit down and work on it, I'm not going to achieve what I'm hoping to achieve. You know what I mean? And so, like you're talking about that large drawing that you've been working on for some time, sometimes it's healthy to step away from a project unless you have a deadline or a patron or something of that magnitude, right? And give it some space. Even in our classroom settings, Chad, there's often, I've seen you do this, I've seen Sarah do this, I've seen, I know myself, I've seen Thomas do this, where you go, hey, maybe let's step away from it for a little bit. Like, let's give it a break. Let's work on another project. Let's come back to it with a fresh set of eyes. Let's come back to it with some fresh energy. And, and usually we only let students do that for a short period of time, right? Because it's a class, it's a course. But as a creative endeavor, sometimes it's good to step away and give it a breath. As long as you're still creating and doing other things, sometimes it's good to come back and maybe your energy is completely renewed and you're motivated and you're excited and encouraged. And I think that's healthy. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and like you said before, I'm not working on a deadline with that particular one that I'm talking about. It's more of a personal project. The only thing you have to be careful about with that is you can just keep putting that off and never get it
Yep.
done. And I do
Yep.
want to eventually get it done for sure. But at the same time, I am really enjoying the what do I say, the quickness or the flexibility I have with charcoal, and I'd love to be able to get those same large scale drawings done quicker, which would be really nice because I'm always coming up with thoughts and ideas and stuff, but you only have a certain amount of time. So if I can find a medium where I can get it done fast and it's still a good quality, then I definitely want to invest my time into that. And so
Yep.
I want to explore that. So like I said, it'll be a larger drawing. I want to see if I can get it done in a relatively shorter time than maybe the pencil. The pencil is different because obviously with a pencil you have this small little lead, and if you have this huge drawing space, you're not going to be able to cover it that much. Whereas with charcoal, you can just like spread it and like
Move it
around so much quicker, and then but still have the same detail that you can get in there, with a charcoal pencil or a sharpened piece of vine or whatever. You can get in there and do some details. So yeah. So anyways, that's what I'm looking forward to getting to. So
Well, and you lead me into something that I was literally talking to some students yesterday about, which is, we always joke about Da Vinci syndrome, right? Which, Da Vinci would start projects and then never finish them. And, there's a lot of different reasons for that, patron changes and, projects he didn't necessarily believe in or want to work on, or just continuation of growth. But I do believe this, Chad. I do believe this, that finishing projects, not always, but can be a learned attribute.
yeah.
You can push yourself to complete something, and then once you learn how to complete projects or come to terms with feeling it's complete, right? Because you could work on stuff for eternity. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like
Yep.
constantly. But it's a learned attribute to get to a place of completion and feeling like, okay, this is I can move on. That is a learned attribute. As a coach, I used to say winning is a learned attribute.
Yeah.
Once you know what it takes to win, it's easier to win again, because then you know what it takes to get there. Now, that can be a moving target, right? And especially as an artist, that can be a moving target. Is it as easy to complete a comic book page at that size versus a 6 foot by 5 foot drawing? Perhaps not. But training yourself to get to a point of feeling of completion or actual completion, I believe, gets easier and easier and easier the more you do it. So if you're a young artist out there, if you're a practicing artist, don't be afraid to finish something, because now you know what it takes to get over that hump and to get there. And I think that's a huge thing. And I feel that way about my writing as well. When I finished my first novel, I then felt like, okay, I know how to do this again. And, because it was a daunting task. It was something I never thought I could do. I didn't know how I was going to get there. I didn't know how I was going to complete it. And then ultimately you go, yep, I've got it, I want to give a shout out here to Matt's comment. I think it's great. He goes, iron sharpens iron. Art inspires art. So where Chad has encouraged you, I'm encouraged by both of you. And we're grateful for that. We're honored. And you encourage us as well. All of you out there, everybody that just jumped in, everybody that joined, we're so grateful for you guys. That's why we create together. That's why we do these VAAS Lives, because it doesn't matter if you're local or if you're in a different part of the United States or even globally. We have people who've jumped on and created with us, Chad, from everywhere, Japan, Canada, Colombia, Venezuela. We've had them from everywhere. And the goal is to create together and sharpen each other. And that's either through conversation, that's through skills and techniques, whatever it is that we can do to help all of you guys and to help us too. I mean, selfishly, Chad, we love this. This is amazing for us. And that's part of being in a creative community. And I think it's really powerful. So Matt, iron sharpens iron to you as well, my friend.
Yeah. And a lot of times we've talked about this before, that you have a hard time seeing your own art or even thinking about yourself in an objective way. And so it's always good to have some fellow artists and friends to encourage you and challenge you and push you. You know, it's kind of unfortunately something that a lot of artists struggle with is that self-deprecation where they just feel
Yes,
like, man, my stuff, it sucks. No one's ever gonna like it. No one's ever gonna buy it or appreciate it or whatever. And so it really is helpful to have, someone come alongside you and just keep pushing you, keep encouraging you, so we all need that for sure.
I agree. Unless you're Vincent Van Gogh and get your ear cut off by a friend who has a sword. I'm kidding.
I was going to say, unless you're Vincent Van Gogh and you're a master, but at the same time, I'm like, no, he struggled with that too. That they all
All of
struggle
them
with
have.
that.
I
With
mean,
that
everybody
sense
does
of,
at some point.
yeah,
It's funny because I did, the one that comes out soon, the art history is about Michelangelo in the Sistine Chapel. And, this is not, it's part of it, but it's not. Michelangelo did not think he was a painter.
yeah,
He did not consider himself a painter. And in art history, contemporary, we consider him one of the great master painters.
yeah,
But he himself did not like painting in fresco. He was a sculptor, and by goodness, he should have been only a sculptor. Could you
yeah,
imagine if we didn't have Michelangelo's paintings?
yeah. It's crazy. Yeah,
Because he didn't think he was a good enough painter. That's insane. Could you
yeah,
imagine if we have some of the most prominent painters like Artemisia Gentileschi? Let's say Frida Kahlo. Could you imagine if those ladies didn't think they were good enough?
yeah.
We wouldn't have their work. It's just amazing to think that those communities and those people help more than we know, right? And I think, Chad, that's in a lot of aspects of life, not just being an artist or a creator.
Yeah, I'll give a shout out to my wife on that one. Like there are so many times where, I'll be talking to her and just share like kind of how I feel about something or just feeling down or frustrated or, just questioning my life choices.
Yeah,
And she will be such a voice of encouragement, like, just to or a objective viewpoint to say, yeah, I see that you're struggling with this, and yeah, some of that's legitimate, but think about it like this or whatever. It just gives you a second viewpoint on your life, and everyone needs that. Whether it's
I
a
agree.
spouse or a friend or a mentor or just someone in your life to be able to do that for.
I would agree entirely. Everybody needs a little love every now and then. Or if you're me, a ton of love. A lot of encouraging words. Dun, dun, dun. Dun, dun, dun. Well, I've got my couch back going pretty good to where I'm at. And I don't know. I'm kind of feeling a little stuck here. I don't want to dive in yet. So here I'm going to try to talk through this because people watching may think I'm absolutely nuts, but I'm going to try to explain this. I often like looking at my works of art for extended period of times without touching it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm looking at it, like I've been doing now, it's almost as if I'm painting it without painting it.
Yeah.
And it's almost as if like I'm envisioning, okay, well, where do I go next? If I do X, Y, or Z, it's going to affect A, B, and C. Or I'm pre-painting it in my mind so that when I actually go to put paint on canvas or mix my pigments, I'm usually pretty close to what I want to execute, right? And it's almost the thing that I think, gosh, I think it was from the Lord of the Rings movies, I think. And I may be wrong on this. If anybody's listening and actually knows, please chime in. There was a behind the scenes segment where they were talking about taking standard storyboards and they started doing animations with them. And then they started doing 3D animation storyboards of these extreme shots. And I think Peter Jackson called it pre-visualization.
Yeah.
He called it previs. And that word has stuck with me for so long, not because I'm doing any kind of storyboards or 3D animation in preparation. It's because to me, it explains exactly what this process that I'm talking about is. It's pre-visualization of the execution of the painting. I'm visualizing it in my mind. I'm pre-vising it in my mind. Therefore, when I go to do it, I have a higher success rate, right? And so where I'm stuck at right now, guys, is I'm stuck at pre-visualize. I finished the section I had already pre-visualized over the last week since our last live stream. And now I'm kind of pre-visualizing where I'm at here. And I know I want to leave the hair almost to the last point because the hair overlaps everything. And the hair is more loose and fluid and whimsical. So I'm saving that. But I know I got to tackle this laptop. I know I've got to tackle the laptop because the blanket lays over the laptop. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And so I've got to paint the laptop first so that the blanket can be painted on top of it. And so I'm pre-visualizing, okay, what values do I want? What pigments do I want? How am I going to place this in here? What is my execution? Am I going to start with the keys first, or am I going to start with the laptop top? You know, am I going to start with the bigger, I'm going to probably start with the darker pigments first, but how am I going to execute this? So I'm kind of in a tough spot, guys. I hope this makes sense. Chad will tell me if it doesn't, but I hope that kind of makes sense is kind of where I'm at.
Just got to do it.
Just got to put paint on canvas, right, Chad? Put paint on canvas.
So we have a comment from Matt, and he says, and we all have to be able to take constructive criticism and apply it rather than get discouraged and possibly sent into a downward spiral. Constructive criticism is meant to push us up, help us, and typically done from love. Thoughts on that?
The only thing I would say is I always hope and want it to typically be from love. But I have had many experiences where there is unhealthy critique, Matt. There is, I don't want to say it's always jealousy or envy or just straight up nastiness, but I would say sometimes critique is not always done out of love. And that's where you have to be resilient enough to know when it is coming from love. Or Chad loves this word, and it's a brilliant word, and he uses it. Discernment. You have to have strong discernment to know, is this coming from a place of love, or is this an unhealthy critique? Because I would say, Matt, a lot of times there are moments of unhealthy critique, and that would be my only thought. I think everything else was eloquently put and very well put and beautiful, but just be mindful that sometimes it's not coming from a place of love. And that can hurt you and put you in a downward spiral and be negative.
Yep. He's probably thinking, though, if it's like from someone he
of course
already is in relationship with, like you or me or a friend or whatever. Yeah, for sure.
Which I agree with, Matt. That wasn't necessarily for you per se. It was more so from let's say from a new viewer standpoint, if you will. We've spent a lot of time talking about critique on this live stream, which is great. For anybody that's new, we're on episode 39, which is amazing. Super great, super awesome. I agree with that there. Do want to give a shout out real quick. We've got, I don't know if I'm saying Shumpa or Shumpa. Hello. Great to see you. Thanks for jumping on. We've got Deep Pixel AI Art. Great to see you back. Hope you're doing great. Wonderful to see you. And everybody that just jumped on over on Instagram, you guys are amazing. Wonderful to see you guys as well. Again, this is VAAS Live. We are the Visual Arts Academy and Studio. We're based out of Louisville, Kentucky in the United States. And we teach art lessons for students of all ages and all skill levels. Here we have our humble wizard, Mr. Chad Nuss. He's a master draftsman. He is a very masterful storyteller, and he's working on book 3 of his graphic novel series, The Silence. I'm Seth Jones, one of the co-founders and instructors here as well, and I'm working on a grisaille painting in oils. And so we are so glad you guys joined us. But the whole hope of this, Shumpa and Deep Pixel AI Art, and of course, Matt, we know you're not feeling well, but you're creating, and Jake Knights and More Art 502 and everybody else over there, everybody that I'm not even mentioning, we hope you're creating with us. That's the goal of this live stream, and to converse about all things art history, techniques, skills, theory, or whether or not critiques come from a positive place or a negative place. So those are what we're doing right now. We're right here, and we're so wonderful that you guys are joining us. We're so grateful for it. And I think we've got a comment here from Deep Pixel AI Art. They always throw out some really good ones here. Let's see what we've got. Which one feels closer to your heart? all painting or working on graphic novel pages? Ooh, and why? Ooh, Chad, this is a good one for you because you do a lot of very creative drawing. You do a lot of very expressive, theologically driven artwork. Or do you feel like your heart's closer to your graphic novels, buddy?
That is a great question. How about I'll rephrase the question. If you had to
Ooh,
choose one approach and you could only do that for the rest of your life, which would it be? And so for me,
oof.
I would have to choose either between, because there's three main kinds of art I like to do. I like to do graphic novel, comic book type narrative art. I like to do abstract,
Yep.
geometrical abstract art, and then I also like to do realism. And particularly lately, in the past year, charcoal realism. So if I had to pick one and I had to do that one, man, as soon as I said that, I was
You want
like,
to take it back?
yeah, because I was set on the one I was gonna say, and then I was like, well, I don't know. What I was gonna say was the charcoal realism because that's the one I enjoy most drawing. However, I think the graphic novels appeal to more people. So there's a part of me that's like, oh yeah, but I could bless and
Reach
influence,
more.
yeah, reach more people with the comic books. But I think my heart is for, I love realism. I love figure drawing. I love charcoal. I love it so much. But I do love what I'm doing right here too. It's
Excuse
just
me.
more like meticulous and more, it takes more time and things like that. But it's just, yeah, that's a hard one to answer because I like them for, so many different reasons. And I like the abstract work too. Like, but I know that doesn't appeal to a lot of people. That's a very niche, or however you say that, type of thing that even people that are in abstraction don't necessarily like that work. I just like it personally. So, but I would probably say realism first, comic book second, abstraction third for me personally. So,
That's a really hard question, and I hope it's not something that ever we have to ever like actually decide.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
because I love doing like, and one of the things that makes me really sad right now is I haven't done in almost a year. I haven't created a new Ragamuffins comic yet.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
I've taken
Yeah.
a break from those because I've been so busy with the academy and curriculum and everything else, but then also just this painting series, right? Like I've even thought, man, I should do some Ragamuffins comics on the live stream. I mean,
Yeah.
why not? I should do some of that, and I think I will. But I don't know. I think the older I've gotten, so for me, it's all about storytelling. I want to be able to tell stories. And if you ask me what medium do I think I'm most successful at in that, I don't know. I don't know what delivery I would say I'm the most successful at delivering stories, right? Is it I talk a lot, Chad. I tell a lot of verbal stories. Is it verbal storytelling? Is it the comics? Is it the cartoons? Is it the paintings? And lately, I feel like my paintings are telling a higher quality story than even my um, cartoons.
Mm.
And I think I don't know if I'm, you know, becoming more sophisticated as an artist or in my execution, or maybe it's just simply because both of them are about my children, but these paintings are more moments in time,
Mm-hmm.
right? The
Mm-hmm.
cartoons are more fantastical. They're based on reality, but they're not. Whereas these portraits that I'm doing and these paintings that I'm doing, the stories that I'm telling, like the one of Cora leaning against the wall, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
an essence, that's a moment in time. And I think that's more what I'm leaning more towards as I age.
Yeah.
Um, but I say that, but then I personally have so much fun making the cartoons.
Yeah.
Like I have so much fun drawing those cartoons that it's hard to say I don't want to do that as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Luckily, we don't have to choose, buddy. We get to we
Exactly.
get to work on all of them, and
We can
and
do
boy, are
whatever
we
we
so
want.
fortunate. That's right. We are so fortunate.
That I would say is one of the downsides of making art professionally if you're working for someone else, is that you are kind of pigeonholed into something. Like
Yeah.
you have to, if you're a graphic designer, you have to design, packaging and labeling and page layouts and stuff like that. So that might not be your favorite thing to do. You might have a heart to do, still life oil painting, but that's not your life. So you have to do this other kind of stuff. And so that's the kind of trade-off. You can go do art for yourself, and if you're have a particular gift with entrepreneurial type stuff, then yeah, you can make a business for yourself. You can make a good living if you're able to do that. Or you can go the gallery route and try and go in that world or whatever. But there's less financial security in doing those,
Yep.
but you get to do what you want. So me personally, I took the third route where I just always worked a job to pay my bills and then was able to draw whatever I wanted. And I love that freedom. There are days where I sit there and wrestle and think, man, I should have taken this job, or I should have done this freelance thing, or I should have worked with this person. But I always think at the time, I just didn't want to do it because it's like, I would be known for that one thing, and that's it. And as much as that's a real draw to think, oh yeah, your name will get that out there, people will know who you are, and then you can even convince yourself, well, then I'll have the freedom because I'll have my name will be established, and I
Right.
won't, but that's not
That's
a
not always the
reality either.
case.
That's not
That's
always the
right.
case. Yeah, so it's like there's a very like 0.1% of people that achieve that level where they can do whatever they want and still get paid, as good as someone else. But the reality is, like most people in the art world, you're either going to have to sacrifice your freedom for money or sacrifice money for
Creativity.
freedom, kind
Yep.
of thing,
Yep.
and I'd much rather have my freedom and be able to draw whatever I wanted than have to draw what other people tell me to draw. And that's just, every artist is different. There are some artists that love to do freelance. They love to work for, a Marvel or a DC or a Disney or whatever and do what they tell them to do. But
Yep.
for me, I just, that just never really appealed to me. You know what, how it appealed? It appealed in name only, in the
Right.
sense like
Right.
the idea of saying, well, yeah, I'm a Disney artist, or yeah, I'm a Marvel artist. Like there's something to that, there's a gravitas to that, I think every artist deep down inside would love to be able to say, but it comes at a price. And the price is
Yep.
they kind of own you. Like they tell you what to do and when to do it, and, and that kind of thing.
Sometimes how to do it,
What's that?
and oftentimes how to do it. You
Yeah,
will do it
exactly.
this way.
100%. Yeah. So,
You know,
yeah.
we've got a
Um,
couple of good questions here, I think.
Yeah, I was gonna say Matt has a question that I would love to answer. He says, "Who's your favorite college and professional football team, and do you have a favorite player?" So I'll go. I'll start with this one. My favorite college team is Boston College, and there is a story behind that I won't share right now. I will hold off on that story for a while, and I would like this to run for a little bit before I tell the story because
Yes.
I've there's been different seasons in my life where I've liked Boston College more than others, and it's been hilarious to just watch and enjoy. So, yeah, so I'm going to say Boston College is my favorite. I don't really have a favorite player right now. I think I'm usually talking football, and I usually appreciate their offense, and so that I think they have a strong offense. We'll see how their year goes, but yeah. What about you, Seth?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, my favorite college is the Savannah College of Art and Design,
Hmm.
where I was an All-American lacrosse player and absolutely loved it. I was very fortunate I got to play sports, and believe it or not, Chad, I was actually featured on the men's SCAD lacrosse page today as an alumni.
Oh,
And yeah, I
really?
know. Yes, it's very cool.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So if you're on Instagram or if you're on Facebook, go take a look at that. Outside
I
of
might
that,
look that up right now.
you should absolutely look that up. Look at
I'm
the
impressed. Yeah.
SCAD men's lacrosse. Um, and so that's obviously my favorite, and I'm a big fan there. And then my mother used to work for the University of Louisville, the law school there, and so I really like that. But really, as of late, my favorite university I follow and watch for college football is University of Michigan. And that's because one of my friends happens to be the head coach for the University of Michigan football program. And so I've been very fortunate to know he and his wife and their children. And I haven't been able to hang out with them much over the last number of years because of kids and everything else. But I will watch and support no matter what school he's at, because I follow him and his family more than I follow the program of what he's coached. And he's been a very successful coach at many different places. And he's now currently the head coach at Michigan. So at 7:30, I'm hoping to, at the end of the live stream here, I'm going to bolt home and turn on the game and see how Sharon's doing. And hopefully his boys are doing great. He's a wonderful man, a wonderful leader, and he's exceptional as a coach. And I hope he has nothing but the ultimate success. I don't really watch pro sports much. Maybe if Sharon ever ends up coaching professional sports, I will, and I will see what he's there, and I'll follow and support that. But really, it's the Savannah College of Art and Design Athletics is what I follow, and then the University of Michigan, Go Blue. And I support him tremendously, and I think he's an amazing person, and his family is just exceptional. So I hope they're having nothing but wonderful success here in about 10 minutes when kickoff starts. I do want to give a quick shout out. Gene, giving a shout out to both of you for making people like me wanting to tap into the creative side. I appreciate that shout out. I think it's absolutely amazing, but you did that yourself. You took the chance. You came out and took classes and lessons and had the courage to put yourself in a unique learning environment and give yourself that opportunity. We're just here to cultivate it and give you some plant food and some water, right? Give you a little bit of sunshine. That's all on you. You were brilliant and wise, and you took the leap of faith to take an art lesson. And I think you're excelling and exceeding all expectations. It is such a joy to see your work come to life. Thank you for that wonderful comment over on Instagram. You guys are absolutely amazing. And Matt, outside of that, I don't really watch too much sports anymore. I really only kind of watch Sharon and kind of get that going. But it is football season, so we will see how Saturday nights go with college football going on. We've got, and I want to hear more about Chad's infatuation and love for Boston College. I think it's amazing that he's been such a big supporter for so long, and his knowledge is extensive. So I get really excited to hear his take on how they're doing and where they're at. But we do have another wonderful, go Cards. Yeah, she's going, go Cards, go Cards. I like it too. Go Cats, go Cards. We love everything. When I lived outside of the state of Kentucky for 10 years, it was funny because I would support both U of L and UNK, University of Louisville and University of Kentucky, Chad. And you've lived here long enough, and you know this. You kind of got to pick one if you live here. And
Yep.
And when I lived outside of it, I would support both. And I'm like, come on, both of them. It's great for the state. It's good when they do well. It's good for the state when we do well. And then I move back and I go, oh yeah, they do not mingle. You got to pick one or the other. And so I do hate that for this state, because when U of L does well, when UK does well, the state does well. And I think it's great. So, we don't have we have very few pro teams here. We have some, professional soccer and some other things, but we don't have a huge pro level. We don't have like an MLB team or an NFL team or anything like that. So our university sports mean a lot here for this state, and I hope they do well and exceed all expectations. Matt says Michigan State, go Michigan State. That's awesome. That's wonderful. We do have another comment here, Chad, which actually I think is a really neat one. And I know my answer, but Deep Pixel AI Art says, if you weren't artist, what other career would you have loved to pursue?
Well, I do have an answer for that. So my immediate one, I would say, if I had to do my life over, I would probably have gone to culinary school. Because I worked in restaurants for 20 plus years, everything from corporate to fine dining. Fine dining was definitely my favorite. Definitely, I love that. And I would have loved to have gone back to school to really learn and like hone that skill, because that's a creative skill on multiple levels, because it's almost like being a sculptor or a multimedia artist, because you have to learn not only how to cook, but also how to present the food. You've got to learn how taste, I guess is part of cooking, but you learn how like taste mix together, visually how things look. It's just
science too, right? I mean, there's a high level of science in there.
Yeah, and for a while there, like I was really trying to learn kind of more advanced techniques, but I just didn't have the years of experience to be able to do it. But like, yeah, you could really, it's amazing, like especially the molecular gastronomy type stuff where it's like it's food, but it doesn't even look like food. Just some of the things that people can do nowadays with food. So anyways, I've always loved, my wife and I have both worked in restaurants, and so that's what I would have done if I had to do it. If I had to do it again when I was young. I mean, definitely you could make the argument, well, you could go back to school now and you could do it.
Right. But time
Yeah.
is, yeah.
Time is a real factor, especially in certain environments, certain careers for sure. And cooking is one of those things that you can't really be good unless you have like decades of experience under your belt, you know. And I suppose in some ways that's all whatever you call it, careers or whatever, but there is just something to that. And then the second thing I would say, which is still some, I mean, it's actually what I do now, which is teach. And
Yep.
so as you know, Seth and I've talked about going back to school for more degrees to increase, like to become a better teacher and more versatility and that kind of thing. So yeah, and this is a separate conversation, which I would love to have here maybe in a few minutes or maybe next time, is that quote, you know, those who can do, and those who
Oh,
can't do, teach.
ooh.
I would love to unpack that one because when that actually recently came up in a conversation between Seth and I and some of the parents of our students, and I would definitely
I,
love to explore that. But
I was afraid I got maybe a little too fired up. I hope I didn't come across rude.
no, not at all. I think your point was great, but I would love to hear what your thoughts were on this.
Well,
On
so it's a couple of things. So I always wanted to be a teacher. I always wanted to be a college professor. That was
mm,
always a dream of mine. I always loved the idea of academia, and being, revered as a mentor, right? I always thought that was really special, and being on a campus, a creative, university, and being surrounded by people who wanted to learn and grow, and just to motivate and encourage. I always wanted to be a college professor. I didn't know I'd fall into teaching the way that I had, but that was something I always wanted to do, which is partially why we're here, right, Chad? That's why this place exists. But early on, I did actually. We have a university here called Sullivan University, and I thought about going to baking school, right, culinary for
oh
baking,
yeah,
because I thought it'd be really cool to decorate and design cakes.
yeah,
Which I'm very glad I didn't, because I realized that I'm not as meticulous as you have to be to execute those. I might be creative enough,
yeah,
but the baking side of it wasn't there. Really, the dream I always had, that if I wasn't an artist, I always wanted to be an actor.
really
I
interesting.
always, and I actually almost had a chance. I think I had mentioned to you guys that I did some concept artwork and some design artwork for a writer, and I ended up moving back to Kentucky, but there was an option for me to move out to LA to live with my buddy who was a writer who actually has multiple movies made
Mm,
and has produced, and he was doing an independent film, and he was like, "Hey, I'd love for you to move out here and potentially, audition for this role that I'm writing, and my wife and I and our family would love to host you so that you could take some acting lessons and go on casting calls and things like that." And I was very, very close to doing it. I've always, again, it goes back, Chad, to telling stories.
mm-hmm.
And I think acting is just telling a story, right? And that is something I wish I could have pursued. I don't know if I would have been very good at it or if I would have been successful at it. I mean, that's even harder to succeed at than maybe even art.
Yeah,
But I do love acting, and I really enjoy it. And I thought that would be something that I would have liked to have done. That to me was even more outside the realm of possibility than an artwork, because I had been studying art since I was about 5. So, for me, at least I had that time, Chad, like you were talking about, like with the culinary,
yeah,
like, I often wonder, what if I would have pursued acting? Like my daughter now is pursuing acting, and she does exceptionally well, and so she's putting in that time at an early age to develop those skills and the talent and everything that's needed to succeed. So, I'm curious to see how that goes, but that was mine. Either a professor, which, we are now, right? We're so
mm-hmm.
fortunate. We have our own academy and our studio, and we have taken on that mentor role and that leadership role and the educational element. And it's such a blessing and amazing and so wonderful. But if I could go back and do it again, acting, that would have been the one thing. I love acting because you can move people, right? You
Yeah.
can bring people to tears. You can make them laugh. You can, sweep them away into a dream world of fantasy, so to speak, and I think that's absolutely cool when it's done well.
Yeah, when it comes to college, because I've thought about that too, even in considering going back for education, further education degree and stuff like that. I've thought about that too, but the only thing about college level is there is a sense of competition because you have to you have to land the position, then you have to like try to get tenure and like
Yep.
all that. It's like a lot of politics and that kind of thing. Because there
Yep.
was at one point where I was pursuing a PhD and ended up getting the THM, which is a Master of Theology degree, which is right in between a Master of Divinity and a PhD. And with the thought of maybe going and teaching at a seminary or college or something like that. But it didn't work out because at that time, long story short, I was right up to the point of doing the writing for the dissertation, and just life, takes some turns, and
Yep.
it wasn't a good time at that point. So I took the THM instead, and I sit there and sometimes I think, yeah, I would have probably really enjoyed teaching at that level, but at the same time, I don't know that I would have liked the kind of cutthroat, kind of
Yep.
like competitive nature of that. That's just not my personality, which I know sounds strange to say, even on like when you're talking about like seminary or religious school, but it's there too, because everyone's vying for
Fighting
a
for that
certain,
position. Yeah.
yeah, a certain amount of positions, and that I think that's one of the maybe weaknesses and strengths of my personality is that I'm not that kind of like type A, like fight someone for a position and that kind of thing. I'm just not that kind of person. But at the same time, that I think gives me a bit of approachability, maybe sometimes. Like I can relate to
I would agree with
people, and
that.
I don't want to like steamroll over someone and just get my own thing and that kind of thing. I've never been that kind of person. But I've also tried to be careful of, and I know this is probably going to sound funny, but I've also tried to be careful not to be like a beta male where someone just kind of walks all over you.
Yep. There's
But
a balance for sure.
there is a balance there, yeah. And
Well, there's a
so
balance to yourself too, to be true to yourself.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And so I just love having a regular job and being able to draw what I want, and yeah, and so I don't know. I did just when you said about the college level, my wife often says it, she's like, even now, she's like, I think you would really enjoy that. And I'm like, I don't know if I really would want to compete with other people for something like that. I just want to build into other people and just, that's why I love teaching at VAAS because there's so many students there that want to be there, and you can directly influence them. And I don't have
Yep.
to worry about all the politics and all that junk. It's
Yep.
like, um, yeah.
Well, and if you
So,
ever do, then I'm in trouble because that means I'm the one that's leading those politics, and that's not
oh,
good. But I think I want to chime in on that, Chad, because it was very eye opening for me when my mother had her experience at the universities, because I always had this vision of what I thought being a college professor would be. And that's why I don't really yearn to be a college professor anymore, because you realize that vision of what you think it is not real.
yeah,
And I always had this painted vision that it was going to be like, this whimsical, joyous, and maybe it is. And, I'm sure we have some college professors out there that are like, oh, no, it is fantastic, and it's wonderful. And I think you could say that about any kind of career, any kind of job. But I was, I had my eyes opened up to the fact that it's not what I thought it would be. And that's not necessarily the environment I want to be. But I also had that happen as a teacher, as a public school educator. I had this vision of what being a public school educator would be, and it's not, right. And or it changes, it's from one location to the next or whatever it might be. And or even corporate America, I had this vision of what corporate America would be. And and you grow and you change and things adjust, right. And so I think that's the challenge, is finding where you're meant to be. And all of, for me, and I mean this so much, VAAS is where I'm meant to be.
hmm
It is the calling that I feel that I have been given by God to be an artist. I feel that I get to pour into others, as Chad, you so eloquently said. I feel like I get to instill, hopefully, wisdom and skill, and share my talents and the knowledge that was given to me by other wonderful mentors and master artists and friends. I feel like we get to build something that's lasting and create a legacy that I thought I would achieve as a professor. And I know that this is where the culmination of all my passions. And to be quite honest, ladies and gentlemen, there is a little bit of acting in it. There is some showmanship. I love entertaining during our lessons. If you've ever taken one of my lessons, you're going to be like, man, he is over the top. He is putting on a show. And yeah, it's genuine. Trust me, it is genuine, because that's who I am. And that's what I love. I love putting a little bit. I always used to say, when I was a high school teacher, my job is not to entertain you as students. But if I'm boring as all get out, you're not going to listen. You're not going to engage. It's not going to be dynamic enough. I'm not here to entertain you, but I will be entertaining.
Yep.
Because
right.
you're gonna engage with me more. You're not. I used to tell people all the time, I started teaching when cell phones were rampant in classrooms. And I would go to these meetings and they'd be like, oh, we've got to lock up cell phones and we've got to do this and we've got to do that. And I'm sitting there going, well, if you weren't so daggone boring, they wouldn't look at their phone.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, I want to fall asleep in your class. Heck, I'm falling asleep in this teaching meeting. Good Lord, come on. I'm not saying that you got to be the greatest showman, but put on a little bit of energy. Put on some dynamic elements. Give me something to engage your freaking teenagers. You're losing them.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you know, I get to do everything. I get to act. I get to paint. I get to draw. I get to hopefully, you know, grow myself. This is every morning I get out of my truck and I sit there and I go, this is the dream come true.
Yeah.
This is the dream. And I want to share that dream with others.
Yeah. It's, you know, we talked about, you know, sometimes you get a class where, you know, you only have one student sign up and, you know, there's a part of you that's like, oh, you know, and, you know, there's the business part side of you that's like, no, we want these classes to be full. But at the same time, those one-on-ones have just an amazing opportunity to really build into a student. And I've got a couple of those over the last year that we've been around, or almost a year or whatever. And there is a part of me that loves kind of the romance of that, of like being the teacher and having an apprentice. I love that part about it, because the student gets a more like personalized one-on-one type of interaction, and they get sometimes more like instruction in that sense, you know. But there's sometimes where in my mind I always have that kind of romantic look of like the artist in his studio and he's got a couple like students and everything, and we have that at VAAS, which is just incredible, you know. So yeah, when you say what else would you do, that's why the first thing I said was chef, because I thought, you know, I worked in that industry, but really, I mean, teaching and being able to create on the same time, like that's what else do you want, you know?
I know.
It's
I know.
amazing.
I know it. I agree. And I mean, and that's why, like, I think, Chad, that's what we hope to instill in our students is, you know, the creative world is a unique one, because part of it is your own self-fulfillment, right? Part of it is I'm creating because I love to create, and I need to create. It's something that's in me. But then the other side is you know, you would like to be able to do that and provide for yourself and do some other things, right? And so this is that culmination. This is that. And we work very hard to provide the best experience we can for everybody that comes in this door. And there's a lot of joy that comes from that. And it is, you know, I think you hit the nail on the head. There is a little bit of that romanticism, right? Like, I mean, that's part of the reason I wear this giant hat, ladies and gentlemen, is I always dreamed of having the courage to wear a hat like this. And I never had the courage to do it until now. And that is that romantic idea of that creative artist, you know, that has the whimsy, you know, to the courage, the whimsy, the creativity to pull something off. And I don't know if I do, but I try. And, you know, I don't care if I do or not anymore, because I love doing it. And I feel comfortable at VAAS to do that. And that's a special thing.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, well, I told you, my wife saw you on the live stream, or oh no, she saw one of the promos for VAAS. And it was the first time she saw the hat. She was like, "Oh, that's genius. That's awesome." Because it is kind of become like your trademark. And I love
Yeah, it
that
has.
about it. Yeah.
Thanks, buddy. I like it too.
I mean, it's not as glorious as my beard, the trademark of my beard, but you know, it's getting there. So
it's not as glorious as being called a humble wizard.
well, that's true too. Yeah. Yeah.
Not everybody gets T-shirts made with their face on it.
I know, and I'm wearing it today. There it is. Yeah. See?
It's so good. It is awesome. We're going to have to print some of those because I think people are going to be wearing those around town like crazy.
Yeah. Well, Anesh said he wanted one, and I told him to come talk to you, but I don't think he had a chance to talk to you yet. But I think
that is awesome.
Yeah.
I think we will have to print out a couple more. I think that's really, really cool. Maybe some special awards. You know what I mean? Like not everybody gets one, but the Humble Wizard only gives out a few every now and then, and
there you
got to do something special for it.
Yeah.
Which is I think actually a really neat idea. I do want to give Matt a big shout out though. He gave you the idea. We didn't actually read it out a little bit ago, but he said do an illustrated cookbook, and I'm like, oh man, that would be an amazing collaborative thing for you and Elizabeth. That would be absolutely so cool to collaborate on that. I'm like, man, what a husband and wife duo that would be. That would be amazing. We could even sell it here at the shop. Cool. That would be great. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, I'll have to think about that one. Yeah.
That's such a great idea. You know, Noah could help out with some of the food that he's creating. I mean, I think it's so cool. I think it's a great family idea. I don't know if we want to dive into this yet or not. We got about 20 minutes, and Matt's throwing it back out there, Chad. He goes, but those who can't do teach. And I don't know. What do you think, bud? Do we want to dive into it? I get pretty worked up with this.
I know that's like a whole can of worms.
Maybe we should open this one up. You know, next week, maybe we should leave this one for next week, because I'm hoping next week we will have Thomas with us. I'm hoping. So maybe we save that. I don't know. What are your thoughts? 20 minutes, I don't think is long enough.
Yeah, I think we should save that one. I think that should be almost like a theme. Like, you know, just say, this is what we're going to talk about next week or whatever. I don't know.
You know what? I think, Matt, if you're okay with it, everybody else that's watching and listening, here's what we're going to do. We're going to throw it out there that this is going to be the opening, right? We're going to open next episode with the concept of the idea here in the United States is that those who can't teach. That's the statement. That's what gets thrown around a lot. And I have some very strong opinions on that. And I have some very strong thoughts that I've accumulated over the last 15 years from when I did become a teacher. And I will go to town. So if you have not heard me pontificate about this, be ready next week, because I'm going to get on a very tall horse, and I'm going to have a flaming spear, and I'm just going to go about it. And Chad, I actually thought you had some incredibly valid points as well. And so the Humble Wizard and I are just going to go at it. The showman and the wizard, we're just going to go to town on this topic of those who can't teach, and how just incredibly absurd that is. But I'll leave that for next week.
I know. I can feel you just wanting to say more. Nope,
I need to record a promo for it.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a podcast that I listen to from time to time. It's an art podcast, and one of the things they do is they'll take a quote from a famous artist or whatever, and not necessarily a famous artist, but like just a intriguing quote, and that will be the theme of their discussion. And then they'll go off on other things. But I kind of like that idea of, saying, okay, this is what we're going to talk about. This will be our opening volley, and we'll kind of see where it goes. But yeah,
it's going to be a heavy one. I hope you guys have your cannonballs ready, because I'm gonna throw some out there. I'm telling you what. Well, and I was very fortunate, and I'm not going to dive in too much, but I was very fortunate to be around other teachers from other parts of the world and get their perspective on it. And that was incredibly eye-opening. So I'll share that next week as well. You guys, this is just absolutely amazing. This is the way we like to have a Saturday evening. I haven't even checked the score yet. I'm hoping Sharon and Michigan are doing great. I hope everybody's enjoyed college football. But more importantly, I hope you guys are enjoying VAAS Live, because we absolutely love bringing this to you every Saturday. Hopefully next Saturday we'll have VAAS co-founder and artist Thomas Tupper join us. hopefully he'll be able to jump in. I'm hoping, Chad, to have him live. He's visiting, so he'll be live, hopefully out of the studio. Obviously, our humble wizard will be creating and working as well. But ladies and gentlemen, let me take this full screen just so you guys can see the beauty of what's coming out of Chad's pencil. Look at this, ladies and gentlemen. This is just absolutely stunning. Chad, I don't know if you can maybe bring that a little bit closer, but look at that mark making. Unbelievable. Look at that launch silo. Wow, the riverbed. Wow, this is, and you're absolutely right. I don't want to steal your thunder or anything, but I'm going to throw this out there. The effectiveness of the contrast between the line work of the ship and the mark making of the background or negative space is executed so well. It creates such a strong focal point. I hope all of you guys can see what I mean by this. And Chad, if you want to kind of walk us through it, you'll see it. But that contrast leads your eye, right? I mean, that's the whole point, is that it's giving you a focal point and yet still making the negative space interesting.
Yeah, thanks. So, yeah, like I said when we first started, I'm trying to create that kind of fisheye effect. So this angle is like from directly above the launch pad, or it's actually like a tunnel or whatever. It's being launched from underground or whatever. But either way, this is the top layer of it on the ground, and then you see the trees kind of pointed up at you, and then just very quickly they're going back into more of a atmospheric 2.3 point perspective until you get back to the silhouette of the city there in the back. But yeah, to your point, so this spaceship here that's coming straight up at you, I try to use the smoke trail behind it to give it that sense of height as you follow it all the way down to where the launch pad is. And then I'm trying to use a contrast of kind of a little, not quite plain. There's some detail on the ship, and I need to go back in and clean it up a bit. But there is the contrast of the heavy detail on the back, and then the simplicity of the spaceship on top of that really helps it pop out from the background.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I still need to finish that bottom left-hand corner. I'm going to do a bunch of trees back there. So the whole thing is going to have that kind of grayish feel to it. And then you'll have that spaceship and the smoke trail behind it kind of standing out a bit. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
And somebody's ears must have been burning. Guys, we've got Thomas joining over on the Instagram. And so, Tom, we've been talking about hopefully getting you on the VAAS Live next Saturday. And the topic, buddy, if you're still on, the topic is going to be why the saying exists, those who can't teach, and why I just get so fired up, and Chad gets fired up when people say that, because obviously we're teachers. But we'll talk about that next week. It's going to be the major cannonball that we launch right out of the silo, is the word I think you were looking for that space shuttle silo.
Yes.
Launching right out of that silo as we go. So, Tom, I hope that you're able to join us next week. It's always a joy when you get to join us. So excited. Really excited to get this going. And Matt actually says another thing. He goes, the other statement that he does not like hearing is starving artists. You know, Matt, I think you're just kind of giving us like multiple episode topics here, because that is something, Chad, you and I talked about, I think in episode like 8 or 9, perhaps. We talked a little bit about what that starving artist is, or why that came about, and you know, what that it means. But maybe it's time we revisit that as well, buddy. Maybe we got to come back to starving artists, because that one has a lot of weight that comes along with it, and we'll talk a lot about that. But I think it was episode 8 or 9 that we discussed that pretty thoroughly. But, you know, we've got a lot of new viewers. We got a lot of new individuals out there. We just got some additional likes, follows, and shares. And if you haven't given us a like, follow, or share, please do so. It spreads the word about VAAS Live, and we continue to grow over on Twitch. Thank you to everybody that joined us on Twitch. I want to give a big shout out over to Shumpa for following us on Twitch. That's a wonderful platform that we absolutely love being a part of. Everybody that joined us over on X earlier today, that's amazing as well. We really appreciate you guys. And, of course, YouTube is a big platform for every artist ever in existence, period. And I also want to give a big shout-out to everybody that's been enjoying all those likes and comments and shares about the art history in a minute. As I mentioned last week, you know, you got to do the things that you love. I was a little disheartened when we only had a certain number of views of the first one. But now, I think now, Chad, we're over 350 views of the second episode, and hopefully it's giving some wisdom and some insight and some little tidbits throughout the day of it. And We're also working, for any of you guys that are interested, we're also working on getting Chad to do some quick 2 to 5 minute drawing tutorials that we're going to release and get out there for you guys as well. And maybe even some mini lessons that you can purchase through the VAASLouisville.com website. And they're going to change your drawing ability and some tips and tricks that are going to make you guys really, really advance as artists. So stay tuned. VAAS is doing a ton of different things for you guys. We're trying to build this community because we love it. And if you miss any of the last half hour or 45 minutes, you'll know just how deep of a passion this has run for us. And everybody that's involved here, it's something that is just exhilarating and wonderful. So I hope all of you are having a wonderful evening. We got about 10 minutes or so left. Any last minute comments, anything else that you guys want to throw out there, please ask. If not, save it for next week. Same time, same bat channel. Hopefully you guys are old enough to know what that's from. Some of you may not be, but it's every Saturday night, 6 to 8 p.m. We're looking forward to it. It's going to be an amazing experience, and we're really excited for it. So, Chad, it's just been an amazing night. I achieved more than I thought. Even at your encouragement, I went after the laptop, and that laptop is looking pretty good. That screen is starting to look pretty
good job.
So, I'll zoom out so you guys can kind of see some of this. Let me get this here for you guys. My goal today was to get situated with the remaining negative space of the couch. And actually, I'm still not even far enough back. There we go. You guys can, I'm still not. Let's get that whole painting in there. This is a pretty healthy size painting, 30 by 40. And so I was able to finish up this background area here. And as Chad and I kind of discussed, in a couple previous episodes, the balance, the grayscale, doing this in the grisaille process really helps you control your values, right? It allows you to really hone in and focus on positive and negative space, textures, allowing to see whether things are getting lost. And I think that these negatives, and Chad actually made a comment earlier last week that he doesn't want any more detail in this bottom section. He's like, I really like the subtlety in here and that there's no detail. It's a resting spot for the eye. And I agree with that. Yeah. It gives your eye a chance to rest because you have so many folds in the hair and the texture of the shirts and the blankets. And this whole section surrounding the laptop is heavy folds. Mm-hmm. And I have a decision to make. Chad, you and I have discussed this, where this blanket is a, plaid. It's a plaid texture and plaid pattern. I don't think I'm going to paint the plaid on there because I think the plaid is just going to be way too much. Yeah. And, now I have an option to see if I like it, but pre-visualizing this, I think the plaid's going to be way too much. And so I'm kind of processing how this is going to go. But I went ahead and dropped in this nice value here. Obviously, this laptop is lit from the screen. And so the keys and the trackpad and everything are going to be lit. But this background is very heavily cast in shadow. So I feel pretty good about where I was able to accomplish today, Chad. Not only that, but with our conversation as well. So super awesome, productive day for me. Thank you guys for letting me work on this and achieve what I was hoping to achieve. And yeah, I feel pretty good about it. What about you, bud?
Yeah, I love it. I think it's amazing. I look forward to, so on the top part, the darker part, what is your plan for that? Is it going to stay flat like that? Or are you going to put in some different values? I'm not saying it's flat black. It's just on the screen. You don't see a lot of variety there. But what are your plans for that part?
So there is some variation there that you can't really see on screen. And so I think it has a little bit more form, a little bit more dimension. There is some stitching that I may add at the very end. And that stitching can really create a sense of chiaroscuro or I shouldn't say chiaroscuro, of contour lines. Yeah. Right. And so that interior contour line will give it some of that rounding and dimension. The only problem I have with that is it's white stitching. And I'm afraid that white will dominate, if that makes sense. Yeah. And so I'm being very cautious of what I want to do and where I want to go with that. But I also understand that I'm going to be doing color glazes. And as I put on color glazes, that's going to change the level of contrast because there is color contrast. This couch is a dark couch, and I am only working in the grisaille process right now. So as I go in to put in the flesh tones, as I go in to put in the hair, the blanket, all that, it is going to create some separation. So I may go back in and push some of those values a little bit more, but I'm being patient to wait to see how that's affected, if that makes sense. I don't want to overwork yet because I'm not even remotely close to done. This is that first layer. There's going to be so many more layers that go. I get people that go, oh, the painting's getting close to being done. I'm like, oh, guys, it's just the beginning. And so, I don't want to overwork certain sections. It's easier to work them as I go. And so that's kind of where I'm at. I like the dimension of this, but that top right is a little empty at the moment.
Yeah.
And it could be a good resting spot for the eye. It could bring balance. But I do think there's some more work to be done there, but I'm going to be patient and wait and see how that goes.
Yeah. Yeah. As I mentioned last week, I like the thirds of the composition where it's a little bit less detail at top and the bottom in those darker areas. But I think to your point, I don't think they should be necessarily like flat blacks or flat, dark color. I think putting in stitching will be really nice because it'll break up that, but not have as much detail as the rest. So yeah, I look forward to seeing what you do with that. I mean, could you not just do like instead of white stitching, maybe like a gray stitch or, off colors so it just cuts back on that brightness? Yeah.
You've got to be better than your reference, right? You have to make those conscious decisions. So one of the things that I like or that I'm playing around with, which we haven't really gotten into, Chad, is reflected color. Just because the couch is a dark brown leather, charcoal leather, that doesn't mean I can't put in glazes on top of that leather to show reflected coloring, right?
Yeah.
Which I'm actually leaning more towards is putting in some soft glazes in there to bring out some of these surrounding colors and surrounding pigments. And I think that will be really beneficial. Imagine you have super vibrant colors on this bottom left-hand side and then nothing on the top right. Well, what if I balance it out and I bring some of those colors into that top right section and it harmonizes and it actually leads your eye back to the focal points that I want to be in? So keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, when you have a piece, think through these kind of things because there are multiple, as Chad's pointing out, there are multiple solutions to keep this simple negative space engaging and dynamic without being over the top, if you will.
Yeah.
And so as you learn these different skill sets, that's really where, in my opinion, it becomes a much more sophisticated execution. And you get to pick how you want to influence the viewer to see your piece. And, we just went over in one of my classes, composition and design and layout. And those are huge aspects because you should be in control of how the viewer views your work. And I think that's really powerful. So there are multiple options. Chad mentioned, toning down the stitching a little bit so it's not so dramatic, putting in some color value overlays so that it pulls in the surrounding colors. All of those things can be solutions to make that negative space not seem so dead, right? Such a dead space. Looks like I froze, but that's probably somebody saying, hey, stop talking, throw it over to Chad. So what do you think about you, bud? Where'd you finish up today?
Yeah, so I mean, we've already kind of looked at it already, but I was able to get done what I hoped to get done, which was that lower right-hand corner. I think I should be able to get this finished this week, but if not, at least next week, I'll definitely during our live stream finish this page. And then, so I've just got to put some more trees down in this kind of lower left-hand area, put that in. And then some of this, there's some kind of loose areas that just need to be tightened up a little bit on the ship itself. And then we'll call this one finished. And then I think after that, I'm going back and forth on whether to go back to one of the previous pages and start inking or starting a new fresh page of pencils. So I'm going back and forth. I'm kind of leaning towards doing a pencil page and then ink a page and then pencil and then ink and go back and forth. But we'll see pretty soon.
That's awesome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you guys are absolutely amazing. For everybody that gave us a like, a new follow, or a share, we thank you. We're so grateful that you're part of the VAAS community. Matt, thank you for everything. Everybody else, everybody that commented, Gene Woody, thank you guys. Everybody, you guys are absolutely wonderful. Hopefully next week we'll have Thomas with us. And we'll see you next Saturday, 6 to 8 p.m. for another episode of VAAS Live. And Chad, it's episode 40, buddy. So kicking it off, we're going to throw that cannonball out there for episode 40. Those who can't teach, come prepared, guys, because it's going to be pretty heated. And I look forward to it. We will see you guys next Saturday for episode 40 of VAAS Live. See you then.
See y'all.